So the prayer chaplain ministry, is near and dear to my heart. I've often thought it would be just great if everybody stepped up at some point in their life and volunteered to be a prayer chaplain. And then someone pointed out to me, maybe that's not everybody's calling. So I had to rethink that vision of mine and thought, really what I hope for you is that you would get a spiritual experience like I had when I was involved in the prayer chaplain ministry. The depth, the wisdom, and the community, and just the phenomenal spiritual growth of serving in that way. So maybe not if the prayer chaplain might not be for everyone, but there's something else for you to step forward to and serve and grow in that way. Prayer chaplains and Unity as a whole teach about affirmative prayer. In Unity, we look for the good in everything and everybody. We hold positive thoughts because we believe that our thoughts have power to create our experience in life. So when we pray with a positive attitude, from that awareness of oneness and from a realization that it's already done. Ask and it will be given. In the Revealing Word, our co-founder Charles Fillmore said, prayer is conscious communion between man and God. This communion takes place in the innermost part of man's being. Woman's being, too. Jesus is our way shower. He taught us by stories and through parables, and he taught us by example. And he often took time apart from his disciples, from the crowds, just to be by himself and pray. When he was unclear, when he was tired, he would step away and pray. And his prayers then provided the guidance and energy to do whatever was before him to do. So if we want to follow his example, and I think we do, we also need to spend time in prayer. And when we pray, we remember, we feel and know our oneness with Spirit and all that is. Sometimes in prayer, we ask for things like Sherry was mentioning, prayers of asking. Sometimes our prayers are full of emotion, depending on what life circumstance we're in. Many of our prayers are for the concerns and well-being of people we know about and love and care about. Often, prayers are simply prayers of gratitude, just grateful to be alive in what's presented in our lives. Sometimes we dance our prayers, stretch our prayers, right, in yoga. Sometimes there are no words. We're just in a deep spiritual communion with Spirit in the silence. Each prayer is as individual as we are, and as special and individual as that moment in time. And there's no right or wrong way to pray. It's very personal, and it's our communion with the Lord of our being, that divine light within us. It's not for show. We don't have to use big fancy words. We're not out to impress anybody. Prayer is for you. Prayer is for you. One of the first things we learn in the prayer chaplain training is about breathing. And we do that here so often before we start a meditation or a prayer. We say, take a breath. Breath of life, that connection to the very breath of life. The next thing we learn is to center in our heart space. There's this steady, beating, wonderful drum in your chest, isn't there? And when you take a moment to pause and be with that, it's like you can't help but fall into a prayer consciousness. You just connect with that deep, pure love inside your own heart. Affirmative prayer is not about changing God, it's about changing us. We may start out with angry feelings or disturbed thoughts, but when we take time to breathe deeply and center in our heart space, all those negative emotions seem to dissipate. And our less than positive thoughts start mingling with higher thoughts. And before you know it, our consciousness begins to raise. We're at a higher vibration. We take a higher view of the situation. Many times when I was studying at Unity Village, I had the opportunity of taking classes from a woman named Reverend Norma Razota. Am I saying that right? She's just this beautiful, beautiful woman from Puerto Rico, and she's very instrumental in getting the Unity movement out into Spanish-speaking countries. But I especially like taking prayer and meditation classes from her. She had a way of not only talking about spiritual presence, but just emanating it with her being. She taught by example. I was looking at some of her lecture notes the other day, and she was writing about affirmative prayer. And she asked us to imagine a situation. So I'm going to ask you to do this. Imagine a situation at work or in your home life with family member. Imagine a situation where you ask someone else to help you with a need that you have. Can you do that? Get something in mind? So you've asked someone for help. And then she said, when we ask that person, we ask believing that they are capable of fulfilling our request and meeting our need. We ask believing that we will receive. Is that your experience? Yes. She said that asking God in prayer is the same. We ask with confidence and conviction, knowing that we will receive. In affirmative prayer, we are raising our consciousness to a new level of awareness, knowing that we are whole and well and part of this great web of life, being awake, aware of our conscious connection, aligning in our heart, in our thoughts, in our minds, in our bodies, all lining up to speak powerfully in positive ways that are affirming. And then we know that our desire is already done. We feel it. Because in divine mind it is already done. And this is not about a God out there like a genie in a bottle granting wishes. It's about finding clarity and strength within ourselves. And we find that in prayer. It's about connecting to divine ideas and divine intelligence. It's about knowing that we're not alone and really feeling that. We're alive with Spirit. We're resonating with Spirit. We're breathing. Spirit is breathing us every second. Prayer changes us. In closing today, I want to call our attention back to the opening affirmation that we said together this morning. I speak and listen from the love of God in my heart. That affirmation was taken from Daily Word probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I loved that affirmation and the text below. It was so meaningful to me that I had it copied and framed in a beautiful frame, and I put it by the phone in the prayer chaplain office. I know I love to read it before I made calls, and I was hoping that the other prayer chaplains would read it to help center, to help ground in spirit before they picked up the phone to make prayer calls. That affirmation reminds me of how I want to show up in the world. And it's not just for prayer chaplains, it's for all of us. And it's for all relationships, even our relationship with ourselves. I speak and listen from the love of God in my heart. If you want to, you can substitute God. If you want to say Spirit. And you can affirm that at any time, many times a day. And you can even make it more specific by adding someone's name in that affirmation. I think this is especially useful in situations where you want some improved communication or you want some healing in a relationship. For example, I speak and listen to my neighbor with the love of God in my heart. It's powerful. That can be your assignment this week to use that affirmation. So that is an example of an affirmative prayer. We speak, listen, and act from the love of God in our heart. So the love and light of God in my heart recognizes and honors the love and light in you. Namaste.